can just put close it, Prabhu, you can just use it. We are having class, yes. We are having class. Please come down and it should go up. I seen the water, Prabhu. You don't have to worry.
Oh,
No, I did one. Tell me that I did two.
he did two, this two, wrong there. No, all of them.
You want to do the one that I did too?
Oh, yeah.
I did already down. But you want to change the flower?
He said, I want to follow you.
I guess not. I guess not.
Right? No. No. Joshua.
But by grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Vivrajikacharya Asto Tanasata Shri Srimad. Divine grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Shri Krishna Malam Ki Jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Nataraj Ki Jai. Iskon Saint Lutheran Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Class Ki Jai. Vaishnava Sangha Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the Son of the Rotary. All glories to the Son of the Rotary. All glories to the Son of the Rotary. All glories, Shri Shri Guru Garanga. Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, beautiful canto. Prabhupada had this all done before he came to the West, and he described later that because he didn't know how much time he had, he put everything in. Like sometimes it's said in the first two cantos, other times everything's in the first canto. So there's really kind of jam-packed with special mercy and information and instructions for us to try to take advantage of. So it's very special opportunity for us to hear nicely. So this is the chapter Prayers by Queen Kunti, and we've been reading about her, similar to what we were reading about with Uddhava and Vidur yesterday. How Uddhava was explaining how is this on? Something wrong? Hare Krishna. Okay. Yeah, Uddhava was explaining how he felt bewildered thinking about Krishna's pastimes. And Kunti explains some of the same thing in some of these verses. Text 30, well, today we're doing 36, but 30, she starts out, she's the same word. Of course, it's bewildering, O soul of the universe, that you work, though you are inactive, that you take birth, though you are the vital force and the unborn. You yourself descend amongst animals, men, sages, and aquatics. Verily, this is So she's such an advanced devotee, but she's saying, how is it possible? And she goes through all these different descriptions about Krishna's appearance. And how different people have different ideas. The verse yesterday, or a few days ago. Yet others say you appear to rejuvenate the devotional service of hearing, remembering, worshiping, and so on, in order that the conditioned soul suffering from material pangs might take advantage and gain liberation. That's the verse yesterday and reason today. And previous to that, she's saying others say that you took birth because of this. Some say you took birth because of that. So she's describing so many ways. It's difficult to understand the Lord because he's such a transcendental personality. So then today's verse is going to discuss how we can understand the transcendental personality, how we can become purified. We can actually comprehend a little bit of his nature. So text 36. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Get some water, please. Shrimvanti Gayanti Grinancha Bhiknasha Maranti Nandanti Tevehitam Janaha Eva Pasyanti Achireni Tavakam Vapravaho Paramam Padam Mujam Shrinvanti Gayanti Grinancha Bhiknasha Maranti Nandanti Davehitam Janaha Eva Pasyanti Achirena Tavakam Bhavapavaho Paramam Padam Bhujam Shrinvanti Gayanti Grinanti Bhiknasha Swaranti Nandanti Davehitam Janaha Saeva Pasyanti Achirena Tavakam Bhava Prabhaho Paramam Bhujam
Shrinvanti Gayanti Grinatya Bhikshana Antinan Anti Tabe Samjana Eva Partyanti Yakirena Tavakam Bhava Parvaho Paramam Padam Bhujam
Vivanti Gayanti Grinanti Avikshana Pranti Nandanti Tavehitam Jana Eva Pasyanti Achirena Tavakam Avakho Param Padam Bhujam
Eva Sarena Bakam
शृण्वन्ति गायन्ति गृह्णन्ति अभीक्षिणतः स्मरन्ति नन्दन्ति तवेहितं जनाः त एव पश्यन्ति अचिरेण पावकम् भवः प्रवाहु परमं पदाम्बुजम्
What means? Go ahead, please.
Avanti gayanti grananti abhiksanataha smaranti nandanti tavehitam janaha eva pashyanti ajrena tava tam bhava pravaho paramam padambujam
Sarvanti gayanti gunati yadipunah Inandati tave hitam janah Ahe pashyanti yatrena twakam Bhava pravaha upadosmi padam bhujam
Shivanti, hear. Gayanti, chant. Vinanti, take. Abhikshnashaha, continuously. Smaranti, remember. Nandanti, take pleasure. Tava, your. Ihitam, activities. Janaha, people in general. Te, they. Eva, certainly. Pasyanti, can see. Achirena, very soon. Tavakam, your. Bhava Pravaha, the current of rebirth. Uparamam, cessation. Pada Ambujam, lotus feet. O Krishna, those who continuously hear, chant, and repeat your transcendental activities, or take pleasure in others doing so, certainly see your lotus feet, which alone can stop the repetition of birth and death. So please repeat, O Krishna, those who continuously hear, chant, and repeat your transcendental activities, or take pleasure in others doing so, certainly see your lotus feet, which alone can stop the repetition of birth and death. Report by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Supreme Lord Sri Krishna cannot be seen by a present conditional vision. In order to see him, one has to change the present vision by developing a different condition of life, full of spontaneous love of Godhead. Repeat that again. It's very powerful. The Supreme Lord Sri Krishna cannot be seen by our present conditional vision. In order to see him, one has to change his present vision by developing, so how do we do that? By developing a different condition of life, full of spontaneous love of Godhead. When Sri Krishna was personally present on the face of the globe, not everyone could see him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So even when Krishna was here, people couldn't see who he was. Materialists like Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, Kamsa, Jarasandha, and Shishupal were highly qualified personalities by acquisition of material assets. Just like Hiranyakashipu, he had all the mystic powers, all the demigods were surrendered to him. He's the most powerful person in the universe, so wealthy, so powerful, but he couldn't understand who the Lord was. He was envious of Vishnu. So they were highly qualified personalities by acquisition of material assets, but they were unable to appreciate the presence of the Lord, not even the existence of the Lord. They couldn't even appreciate the presence of the Lord. Therefore, even though the Lord may be present before our eyes, it is not possible to see him unless we have the necessary vision. This necessary qualification is developed by the process of devotional service only, beginning with hearing about the Lord from the right sources. So we can understand, okay, in our present condition, we can't see Krishna, understand Krishna, appreciate Krishna, but we can become qualified to do so, develop the necessary vision, Prabhu says, by developing the process of devotional service, beginning with hearing. And hearing from who?
Right.
The right sources. There's some qualifications of all this. The Bhagavad Gita is one of the popular literatures which are generally heard, chanted, repeated, etc., by the people in general. But in spite of such hearing, etc., sometimes it is experienced that the performer of such devotional service does not see the Lord eye to eye. So in other words, hearing Bhagavad Gita, studying it, that is devotional service, probably saying, but still, they can't see Krishna eye to eye. Just one could ask, why? The reason is that the first item, Shravana, is very important. If hearing is from the right sources, it acts very quickly. Generally, people hear from unauthorized sources, persons. Such unauthorized persons may be very learned by academic qualification, but because they do not follow the principles of devotional service, hearing from them becomes a sheer waste of time. If one wants to advance the spiritual life, if you want to study a book and teach a book and just learn it from an academic point of view, great, you can do that. But if one's understanding, the goal is actually to become a devotee of Krishna, you're not going to get the result by such a hearing. Sometimes the texts are interpreted fashionably to suit their own purposes. Therefore, first, one should select a competent and bona fide speaker and then hear from him or her. When the hearing process is perfect and complete, the other processes become automatically perfect in their own way. So that probably changes the flow of the point of this next paragraph. There are different transcendental activities of the Lord, and each and every one of them is competent to bestow the desired result, provided the hearing process is perfect, as explained above. In the Bhagavatam, the activities of the Lord begin from his dealing with the Pandavas, the first canto, right? Very much focused here. We're hearing from Kunti Devi, who's the mother, aunt of Krishna, mother. In the Bhagavatam, the activities of the Lord begin from his dealings with the Pandavas. There are many other pastimes of the Lord in connection with his dealings with the Asuras and others. And in the 10th canto, the sublime dealings with his conjugal associates, the gopis, as well as with his married wives in Dwarka, are mentioned. Since the Lord is absolute, there is no difference in the transcendental nature of each and every dealing of the Lord. But sometimes people in an unauthorized hearing process take more interest in hearing about his dealings with the gopis. Such an inclination indicates the lusty feelings of the hearer. So a bona fide speaker of the dealings of the Lord never indulges in such hearings. One must hear about the Lord from the very beginning, as in the Srimad Bhagavatam, or any other scriptures. and that will help the hearer attain perfection by progressive development. One should not, therefore, consider that his dealings, capital H, Krishna's dealings, with the Pandavas are less important than his dealings with the gopis. We must always remember that the Lord is always transcendental to all mundane attachment. In all the above mentioned dealings of the Lord, he is the hero in all circumstances. And hearing about him or about his devotees or combatants is conducive to spiritual life. It is said that the Vedas and Puranas, etc., are all made to revive our lost relation with him. Hearing of all these scriptures is essential. Om Bhagavatam Yanda Shatinam Jai Shalakaya Chakshru Umritam Yana Tasmai Shri Namaha Shri Chaitanya Vistam Stahitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapanam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivastava Gaur Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare. So if we flip it, we can see who else is there with us this morning. We had a late night program last night. I don't know how many people have joined this morning. We'll see a few. Oh, it was quite a few. All those people are here?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Can we go to gallery? So Hare Krishna Ramchandra is here, RVD, whoever that is, Britta, Sue, PG, Ravindranath, Kantarao, Gopal Dev, Manu Madhurya, Jewel 14, that's the transcendental. Jewel 14, Lal Gopal, Haribol Lal.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Prabhu.
Haribol, Dandavat to you. And Niraj Aurora, probably some of those, there's some other devotional names that we're just reading what's there. So thank you all for joining.
RVD is Rupa Vilas Das, Carbondale devotee.
Oh, very nice. We're just there.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yes, with my humble obeisances.
All glories to the Carbondale Vaishnavas. Yeah, thank you all for joining this morning. So here's a whole chapter of Kunti's prayers. Of course, we know it's not just a chapter, but Prabhupada wanted it made, and it was done by the BBT into a whole book, teachings of Queen Kunti. So it's considered her prayers to the Lord are considered so important that Prabhupada wanted it published as a separate book. So in this particular verse, she's begun with her gratitude of Krishna saving her and saving the Pandavas, and so many times, so different struggles and problems that they had. And then she glorifies the Lord, and she talks about different people giving different understandings of why they understand he comes. You know, he came because Vasudeva Devaki prayed for him. He came because he was here to protect and glorify the kings. He came because he reestablished religious principles. And then she also talks about many of these pastimes, as I mentioned earlier. They're bewildering because, and we see that, we may think, well, how are they bewildered? It's not so bewildering, just like we can understand a little bit why bewildering. But we see a lot of times, like materialistic people, it's completely bewildering to them. And they reject, a lot of times, they just reject any sense of God consciousness because it's too much trouble to understand. I'm too busy. I have to get to work. I have to make more money. I don't have time to think about this. Like I was thinking the other day, I mentioned I was giving class someplace, and I remembered that I had a friend who was a professor at another temple where it was for many years. And I remember him telling me, I really like Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, but I don't like Krishna in the Puranas. He said like that. He said the philosophical Krishna, you know, the Dharmic Krishna, the reestablisher of ethical principles, the defending the Pandavas against Duryodhana, the speaker of the Gita, the modes of nature, yoga, all of that, that's great. Surrender to me, he was fine. But the Krishna of the Puranas, and I don't know if he was specifically talking Krishna with the gopis or Krishna with 16,000 wives or different aspects, but that part of Krishna he clearly didn't understand. And he said that I don't like that, Krishna. I can't comprehend that. So that's an example of being bewildered by what seems to be a contradiction. Krishna is the most ethical person, but then he dances with the gopis in the middle of the night. How's that possible? Or like Kunti saying, you're unborn, but then you take birth. And then you're the supreme controller, but then your mother chases after you and catches you. You know, it's just, it's quite hard to understand. You are said to kill Putana, but when you don't get fed, you cry and you kick your feet. And of course, when you kick your feet, you knock down a cart and kill another demon. That's you know, it's like, how is it possible? So she's explaining all these different. She's mentioning all these different activities and some qualities of Krishna. And here she's explaining in the verse that we're reading today how that how we can understand, and Prabhupada's elaborated very nicely in the purport, how we can understand these pastimes of Krishna. And the simple answer is we have to get purified. We have to awaken, as he says, we have to awaken our love for Krishna. We cannot see the Lord in our present conditional vision. And if we think about it, Prabhupada would many times say, they say, can you show me God? And he would say, you're so proud of your eyes. How good are your eyes? Like all of us, we know, we're in this little space. What's going on just 50 feet away? There's some devotees in the kitchen. I saw them a few minutes. I don't know if they're still there. I don't know if they're still cooking. Are they cleaning? Are they washing? I have no idea. It's just there. The other side of this wall. The other side of this wall. Who knows what's going on there? And even, I think sometimes he would give the example, or it's a relevant one, where you see, we can't even see the back of our eyelids. I think he mentions that. It's the closest thing to our eye, and we can't see it. So how good are our eyes? All of our senses are so limited. So how is it with that we're going to be able to understand, to see the Supreme Lord, understand? So therefore it's explained here, you know, we may think, well, then what hope is there? Just like the last couple of nights we were discussing how there's so many impurities in our hearts, and as we want to go on to devotional service, we have to deal with so many temptations or distractions or materialistic affinities we still have. I mean, what hope is there? So here the key is being given by the process of continuously hearing, chanting, repeating the Lord's transcendental appearances, activities, but also qualities. Prabhupada was explaining even Leela with so many different types of devotees and even non-devotees. It says combatants, that this actually is the way to purify us. So it explains that by this process of hearing and chanting about him, we can become purified. And he says, she says, we can see the Lord's lotus feet and actually realize Krishna, which alone can stop the repetition of birth and death. So that's another claim that's made by our acharyas, that we stop the repetition of birth and death and we develop our love for Krishna. So one may say, well, that sounds kind of like sectarian. You know, you guys say it's only your process. Why is it only your process? Well, it's not only our process, but the goal needs to be achieved because simple thing, why are we in the material world? You know, someone say, why do I have to develop love to get out of the material world? Well, because you're in the material world, because we chose to come here separately from Krishna. And that's our philosophy. That's the understanding. That's Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, that the living entities, we take birth here out of our rebelliousness to him, out of our desire to enjoy the material world. So when we reawaken our love for him, there's many different spiritual processes, there's many religious systems, there's many different processes of yoga. They're like steps on the ladder to bring us to that. But ultimately, we need to awaken our desire to be with Krishna, or else by definition, if we don't want to be with Krishna, then we won't be with Krishna, which means we're going to be in the material world in some way, place, or other. I mean, technically one can enter the Brahmajyoti, but that's also examined. That's temporary. It may go on for millions of years, but at some point the soul wants some activity, wants some experience, and then either you come back to the material world or you go to Krishna. So that's the analysis that's given by the the Vaishnava theologians. So Prabhupada is stating in the purport the fact that we are conditioned, as I mentioned, we can't see the Lord, we can't even, as I mentioned, we can't even see our eyebrows. And that even great personalities that are with Krishna, because they didn't have the proper understanding, then they also couldn't appreciate the Lord's position. So in his purport, Prabhupada just very elaborately develops this whole concept about the importance of being purified, the importance of hearing from the right sources. And he gives this example that there's many different commentaries on Bhagavad Gita, but as he says elsewhere, not one person became a devotee of Krishna. It's quite interesting. I mean, I know myself, when I was traveling before I became a devotee, I was pretty convinced that spiritual life was really what the purpose of life is, was definitely something that needed to be a priority. And I was traveling, I was carrying a little paperback copy of Bhagavad Gita, and I'd read it a few times. I had no idea what they were talking about. I knew that carrying it with me was helpful, but no idea what they're talking about. I also remember one time I bought a ticket to go hear a famous yogi at that time who was traveling in the West. He only spoke Hindi, so they had a translator. His name was Muktananda. And he spoke in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where I was a student. And in the lecture, I just remember he kept repeating, you have to know yourself. Blah, 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 blah. You have to know yourself. You have to know yourself. So I was like waiting for, okay, he's going to tell us soon, what is thyself? He never told us what the self was. But at the end of the talk, I was thinking, like, when's part 2 going to come? Is this an intermission? And you're going to come back and tell us what it is? It's kind of like somebody saying, you have to make money, for instance, jokes. You have to make money, you have to make money, you have to make money. So then how do we make money, right? You have to go to good medical school. You have to go. But okay, well, how do I do that, right? You have to, take care of your children in a loving mood. Okay, well, how? Don't just tell me what, tell me how. That's so critical. So here Kunti is explaining this essential information. How? How do we become purified? How do we give up our materialistic mentality? How do we become attracted to Krishna? How do we lose our attraction for material energy? And we can engage in devotional service to a certain point with kind of like this expression, half-baked energy. Whatever we do, whatever degree we come in contact with Krishna, it's good. There's always benefit. And Krishna's a person. That's our philosophy. He's a person. So it's kind of like, the husband that goes to work and he comes home and he brings home half the salary. And he's given half the salary to the wife and the kids, but where's the other half going? So how much is she interested in having him as her God? Is she going to really feel this is my intimate friend? My husband is my close protector. Is he deeply connected to me? Because I know he's got other interests. I had a friend in high school, I found out years later, was a very good friend of mine. And, they lived in a nice house. They had 4 kids, I think. My friend had 3 siblings. And, it was like they lived in one of the nicer suburbs. It wasn't a really spectacular house, but, middle range. I was in Detroit, so everybody worked in the auto industry related to some way or the other. And after high school, I remember my friend, they found out this man actually had another woman who had another house and another life. So he actually was making a bunch of money, but he had just enough to maintain this wife and these kids. And she literally had another house. And it was oddly enough, she actually was a friend of the family.
Oh.
My friend knew this lady. She was understood as like an unmarried woman who would come to the family for holidays. I mean, you think about, wow, they really, such a lie. They kept going for the longest time. But so I think, when it came out, they all divorced and it was a big trouble for the family. So you can just imagine, sometimes you hear about things like this. I remember there was one of the French presidents died a few years ago. I think it was Mitterrand. He died And at the wedding, his family was there, and his adulterous woman friend was there. I don't know if she had kids too. They both said it was like a little, even in France, it was a little bit of a scandal that how they both would show up at his funeral. So how much is she thinking, I can trust him? How much is she willing to reveal her own heart and her own mind, her own what's really important? She's going to like withdraw, isn't it? Or even if, the other side of a man's doing the same thing, withdraw. So Krishna is God. He knows everything. So if we're like not so focused on him, it's like, okay, I'll reveal a little bit of myself to you, but I'm not going to reveal my intimate parts. I may reveal them. He's revealing his intimate pastimes, his Leela, but he's not fully manifest to us, in large part because we don't have that desire. We see, like in that beautiful movie, Maha Avatar Nrsimha, Prahlad was so focused, like nothing distracted him. I mean, his father tried to kill him in so many ways. He was just okay. Even like when what was his aunt's name? When she took him Holika. Yeah, Holika. When she took him on the fire, and in the Shastra and in the movie too, they did a good rendition. She's taken on fire. She's like laughing. She says, Prahlad, I can see you're upset. You're very upset about this, but don't. You renounce Vishnu, and you're free. And he says, I'm not actually upset about myself, my dear aunt. I'm concerned about you. You're the one who's going to die in the fire, not me. I'm concerned about you. He was so fixed. Okay, we'll walk into the fire. Krishna protected him. So when Lord Nrsimhadev, of course, he drew out the drama when he finally appeared and killed Hiranyakashipu, and so much love was shown between him and Prahlad, because Prahlad was so fixed. So we're not so fixed, but this is so we may think, what hope is there for me? I'm not so fixed. I'm distracted by so many things. What hope is there for me? Well, Kunti's telling us what the hope is. The hope, first of all, it probably says in yesterday's purport, was beautiful. The Lord, however, out of his causeless mercy, because he is more merciful to the suffering living beings than they can expect. He's more merciful than they can expect. He appears before them and renovates the principles of devotional service comprised of hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshiping, praying, cooperating, and surrendering unto him. So Prabhu said yesterday, just whenever you read it, in the verse before 35, that he is so merciful, more merciful than we can expect. So because he's so merciful, he manifests, and it's up to us to reciprocate with that. And he's so merciful, he gives us a process by which we can do that. That's achievable. And as Prabhupada comments, we just have to make sure we hear from the right sources. And that's a little tricky because in this age, there's so many people that present themselves as teachers and this and that. And I was recently in a temple and there was a woman I was speaking to, and she was saying, well, is it okay if I'll follow this other guru and Krishna Bhakti? And I told her, sure, yeah, no problem. Because if we tell people, no, give that up too quickly, then it's hard for them. And somebody else told her, well, yeah, that's okay. You can do both because you'll eventually become more attached to Krishna. And I was thinking, even, well, we have faith, that's the fact. It doesn't even help to say that to someone at that stage, It's like if somebody comes and says, well, I'm a Christian, just an example, I love Jesus, but I want to come to the temple too. Is that okay? We say, yeah, well, that's okay, because eventually you realize that Jesus isn't so important and what really matters is Krishna. But we just killed their process of doing, Who say that's wonderful, you love Jesus or Muhammad or Moses or Buddha, whatever. That's great. Just add Krishna. Prabhupada says it so many times, just add a little Krishna. I think, did I tell the story I did last night about the woman on the train? Yeah, okay. You don't remember, so then that means everybody else didn't remember. Since I just heard this story a couple of days ago, maybe I said in class yesterday, about how Prabhupada, new one to me, so I'll repeat it again. Prabhupada was on a train with devotees, and they saw a young woman, very attractive young woman, who was caring for her husband at some degree of paralysis or some physical disability, and she was feeding him and taking care of some ways. And Prabhupada said that's Krishna consciousness. And devotees were really surprised because, Prabhupada, she doesn't have Kunti Mala, she's not chanting japa. How is that Krishna conscious? And Prabhupada explained because the Lord, because she has the opportunity for sense gratification. She's young, she's attractive, but she's giving that up to serve her husband, which is one of the things Krishna wants us to do. We put aside our own needs to serve him and to serve others. So even though she doesn't know it, she's following Krishna's instruction. So that's Krishna conscious. And the devotees were like amazed. So this is our process is so broad-minded. And as it's described here, Krishna comes again and again and again because he's so merciful is the word Prabhupada used, more than we can expect. He comes again and again and again. And I heard recently somebody else told me that Prabhupada had said, even if, no, it's in the Garuda Purana, devotee told me just a few days ago, in the Garuda Purana, the Lord says, even if someone pretends to be my devotee, I accept them as my devotee. And of course, Prabhupada would comment sometimes like you go in Harinam, like we're going tonight, and maybe somebody walks by and mocks us, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And Lord Chaitanya is like, wow, there's my devotee. They join the kirtan, they're getting purified, they're part of the kirtan party. And, to a certain extent, we should feel that about ourselves. I mean, Krishna has so many pure devotees, and isn't he so kind? We come and we offer a little something to the deities, or we chant a few mantras and try to keep awake. And if Krishna was strict, we're all finished, isn't it? I mean, if he was really strict, what qualification do any of us have, right? I remember a devotee telling a story in the early days. This is a devotee in Colorado who was telling about another temple, maybe Seattle, or it doesn't really matter where it was. But he told us that devotees, they were so young and enthusiastic and working so hard. Sometimes devotees would literally fall asleep during class. I mean, you still see that once in a while, but they fall asleep. But remember him mentioning that sometimes everybody would fall asleep, and then the speaker would fall asleep. And the Pujari would be walking through from the kitchen. You go, hey, Haribol, everybody. So I mean, what's Krishna thinking? We're reading the Bhagavatam. It's the transcendentally most sublime literature in the whole creation, and we're falling asleep, right? It's like he's there on the altar, and sometimes we, hopefully never happens here. Simply, they poke him with a pin, or we offer flour that's not such a nice flower, or we put the wrong backdrop up, and but he still accepts that service. I mean, it's so amazing in the Gita. If one offers me with love and devotion a fruit, a flower, a leaf, or water, just a leaf. I mean, just like if we after class, I'm sure there'll be some prasadam for everybody. And if Ramacharya Prabhu said, okay, everybody, please sit down. We have some Krishna's mercy for you. And he put a leaf on everybody's plate. That's it. You get a leaf. We would be, what? A leaf? Are you kidding me? Well, this is offensive. I need rice, dal, chapati, sabji. You know who I am? I've been devotee for 1 year, or 10 years, or 20 years. How dare you give me a leaf? But Krishna's like, you know who I am? I'm God. Everything comes from me. I'm the eternal enjoyer, controller, friend of everything, but just give me a leaf. It's almost like a sign, like, I don't know if Prabhupada ever uses this word, and maybe it's not proper, but it just comes to me. It's almost like he's so desperate to give us an opportunity to approach him. He's willing to say something. You just did, okay, you don't have a leaf, water. A leaf, a fruit, flower, water. And it probably says those, we can find those anywhere. He was making it so easy for us. So Kunti here is expanding upon that by hearing and chanting. Of course, she says continuously, we want to really, which we do, we want to stop the repetition of birth and death. We need to come to this platform of continuous. But even in the beginning, that by hearing and chanting about Krishna, as Prabhupada says in this purport, that by doing that, the other processes become complete, become purified, become fulfilled gradually. So that's a critical point he makes in the first purport about the first paragraph about the importance of chanting. And then the next part of it, he's speaking about how the Lord's pastimes are all transcendental. And he's kind of explaining what goes on in the world. He's explaining about the mood that we need to have and our proper mentality in approaching, understand the Lord's Leela. And he's saying that sometimes materialistic persons, he specifically says those who are something by lust, influenced by lust or something, when they want to hear, they want to go to the 10th canto. Let's see. Sometimes people in an unauthorized hearing process take more interest in hearing about his dealings with the gopis. Such an inclination indicates the lusty feelings of the hearer. So he's making the point, and he does a lot of times. I've been listening a lot to recordings of Prabhupada's lectures on the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita in London. And he makes his point in several lectures how, why all these, the names of the warriors on the Pandavas side and the warriors against are there. And why we kind of like hearing and chanting those. And he makes the point because they are in connection with Krishna, and it's transcendental. And that somehow or other we have our mundane sense that, well, this is connected, this is not connected, but they're also these personalities in the Leela. So here he's making that point that we have to be careful, and we'll meet people like this for sure. Probably many, many more in India than here, but probably some people living here that come with the same thought. Well, I want to read the 10th canto. I want to read Krishna's higher pastimes. And sometimes even, there's whole sects, SECTS, Sahajas, other groups, that they only want to hear about Krishna's pastime for the gopis, and they dress up as gopis, and it gets very strange. So that's all the manifestation of Prabhupada saying here. Don't think those pastimes are transcendental and these pastimes are not. The Lord is transcendental. Every way that we come in contact with him is transcendental. So the last thought that I had reading this was how wonderful it is. This is the instructions of Kunti, which are shared other places. Narada also talks about the importance of hearing and chanting. So many different acharyas that are presented in the Shastra. We talk about this. How fortunate we are. I mean, all of us, even we come from a different background, we know some of the Leelas and hear different things. Prabhupada designed the whole structure of ISKCON around this principle of hearing and chanting. Think about it. Come to Mangalartik, what are you going to do? You're going to chant and you're going to hear. You're going to hear and you're going to chant. Okay, and then after that, what do we do? We're going to hear and we're going to chant about Tulsi Devi. We're going to worship the exalted devotee, Tulsi. And after that, what do we do? We're going to chant the Maha Mantra. And after that, what do we do? We're going to chant Guru Puja and hear Guru Puja associated with Prabhupada, associated with Krishna's representative. After that, we're going to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. We're associated with Kunti Devi. We're going to hear from Narada Muni. We're going to hear from Uddhava. We're going to hear from Maitreya. The whole process is designed around, and of course, we know Prabhupada's following the footsteps of the Vaishnava Acharyas and his Guru Maharaj. He, adjusted a few things in the West. But somebody may come and just think, okay, this is what they do. They get up early in the morning and they have this, first they sing this, then they sing that. And that's just what they do. But why do they do it? Kunti is explaining here, because by that process, we become purified, our hearts become cleansed, and we awaken our connection with Krishna. So Prabhupada is so expert that he's created this whole process for us. Just like, again, tonight, we're going to go out on Harinam. Well, what are we going to do on Harinam? We're going to chant Hare Krishna, which is fun. It's nice to be with the devotees, and it's purifying. People may know it, they may not know it. As proof of the potency, and there's so many stories like this, but I met a woman recently in Delaware, came to one of the programs, and she was saying that she remembered very clearly, she was maybe 40, white person, American-born person, so no previous exposure to the Vaishnava culture. She was saying that she remembers she was in Baltimore. They have something called the Inner Harbor, which is kind of the touristy area of Baltimore, and you can see the old ships and rent a paddle boat, stuff like that. A lot of people bring their families. So she was there with some friends, some girlfriends. She was younger, I don't know how old, but old enough that she was out there with just some of her friends. And she heard ching, 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 ching. And then she saw the kirtan and she was really curious. So she told her friends, come on, let's go see what they're doing. They're like, we're not going over there. Forget it. So her friends stayed where they were. She went up and approached the devotees, asked them about the kirtan, maybe joined a little bit. I don't remember those details. But when she was a kid, young person, teenager. So now, like, she's 40 and she's connected with Krishna. And she remembers that first experience. And now she's like really serious about her spiritual life. But that first contact with the Harinam. So when we go out and we chant, we have no idea what impact it's having on people. I had experience as a brahmachari a long time ago in Denver, the temple I joined, ISKCON, and I was on a Harinam party downtown Denver, and a bunch of young guys went by with really kind of fancy suits, businessmen or something. And I'm, happened to look up and I saw this one guy, like our eyes met, and I knew him. And he knew me, he recognized me, and I recognized him. He was like a little surprised to see me. And I was like, okay, was it somebody I knew in high school? He ended up, I think he ended up marrying a woman who was a good friend of mine, same age. He was 1 year younger. And so I kind of like dropped out of the Harinam, went over and talked to him. Sam was his name. Sam, so good to see you. And he was like, my legal name, Jeff. Also, it's nice to see you. I'm standing in the dhoti. He's there in like this, whatever, $1,000 suit. And his friends must have walked ahead. And we're talking, blah, blah, blah. And at one point he looked at me, he said, he said, look at you. He said, I can't believe it. Just look at you. Look what you're doing. And I was thinking, like, gosh, he really, okay, now's my chance to become humble. I've been outed with, I'm a Hare Krishna 1,000 miles away from home, and now word's going to get out of it. And certainly some people already do at home, a whole different group. He said, just look what you're doing. He said, look at me. I'm just a lawyer. So like that was a person that really had some sense of just see how you are out here making this serious spiritual commitment. You can be a lawyer too. We went to school and I'm sure my grades were as good as his, and university and blah, 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 blah. But instead of what I thought he was going to say, right, which is you're foolish, you're wasting your time, etc. Why don't you make money like me? He said that. I remember it very clearly. Look at me, I'm just a lawyer. So he had the sense like, you're really trying to make a difference. You're going for something higher. So again, we don't know, somebody, Indra Swami sent something this morning. I got like a video from Macedonia. What city? I can't remember the city. Yeah, I know the city, but I don't remember. And, devotees are chanting. Some people are kind of looking with like a scornful look. Some people won't even look. Some people are joining the kirtan. Some people, some little kids are singing and dancing, just little 6-year-olds, whatever. And we don't know the effect it's having on people, but it's powerful. We had this experience. Kunti's saying this delivers us from the birth and death. And we shouldn't misunderstand how important it is in our own lives. And I'll stop here and see if there's some questions and more discussion in our own lives, because this came out in the last couple of nights. Okay, but how do you really get over these materialistic challenges we have? How do you really get serious? Like, okay, we made a certain level of commitment. It's like a plateau. Sometimes another devotee was asking me recently about they had gone to some temple and had this really intense experience of Krishna, and they're kind of hankering it for it again, but it's not there. And in the first canto of Narada Muni, he explains how his whole history about his mother died when he was very young, and he had the mercy and instructions of the great Bhagavats. And then he went out and he was meditating, and the Lord appeared in front of him, and he broke his meditation in ecstasy, like the Lord appeared. So then he sat down again in meditation, and nothing happened. And then he heard a voice. The Lord said, I paraphrase, I I beg to inform you, you're not qualified to see me. And I think he said, I beg to inform you, will not see me again in this lifetime because you're not pure enough. But I gave you this, in essence, I gave you this vision, I gave you this taste, I gave you this experience to convince you. Now, the rest of your life, go on practicing devotional service, Krishna Bhakti. And at the end of this life, you'll come to me. So our own lives are like that sometimes. Krishna gives us like a special vision. It can be like a class, and it just clicks. Oh my gosh. But I can remember sometimes I travel a lot. I can remember, I don't know where I was, but on some plane looking out the window. I just had this tremendous sense of, what are all these people on this plane doing? Don't they understand this Krishna? Don't they understand their spirit soul? Don't they understand the purpose of life? It just seems so obvious. You know, in other plane flights I've been there, and it's like dull as a doorknob, as they say. You know, it's like I'm going through the motions of bhakti because I know I should, but then the conviction, the taste, it comes and it goes. But sometimes Krishna gives us that little extra special taste and the conviction to inspire us to go deeper. So in the same way it's described here, that we need to go deeper. And the way we go deeper is the way we start hearing and chanting. That's the way we cleanse our hearts more. That's the way we go deeper in our spiritual realization. And that's the way we introduce it to others, Harinam book distribution. I mean, I know I've got friends who became devotees that actually, again, an old story, but one devotee, his brother was traveling through an airport and somebody said, I'd like to show you this book. He said, sure, grabbed it and took off. So they, stole the book. Used to have it a lot. I don't think have this too much anymore. We become a little better in the way we present it. Hopefully people are more gentle, ladylike the way they interact with us. Either way, he stole the book, took it home, and ended up on the bookshelf. Never read it, but his brother read it. Some small town in eastern Colorado. And he went out to every bookstore he could find and bought all kinds of, this canto Bhagavatam, and he found a Gita, maybe Easy Journey and other plants. A few books. Read every book he can and went to the temple and never moved in. So that's the power of hearing and chanting. The potency is there. And of course, a lot of people hearing and chanting don't necessarily move in an ashram. And a lot of people don't even become members of our congregation, but their lives change. We don't know the effect it's having on people. And as far as going deeper, it's explained here that we need to ourselves take advantage of this process of hearing and chanting and repeating the Lord's transcendental activities. And even it mentions, I didn't comment on this because I was thinking, I'm not really sure what's meant. Try to do more study or maybe hear from some of you or just pray to Krishna to get some realization. It says, or who takes pleasure in others hearing and chanting and reciting. It's interesting. See Krishna's lotus feet. So you'd expect from what we know, those who continuously hear, chant, and repeat your transcendental activities certainly see your lotus feet. Prabhupada translates the verse to be, or take pleasure in others doing so. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but at the very least, it means that we also have to become non-envious of others and appreciate the spiritual advancement of others, try to facilitate others' spiritual advancement. And if we take pleasure in seeing their spiritual advancement, we also get benefit from that. Just like it's described in the prayers to the spiritual master in the fourth prayer, that the spiritual master takes pleasure in the devotees honoring prasadam. He's pleased seeing the devotees take prasadam. So, we want to cultivate that mood ourselves too. Even sometimes we may not feel particularly inspired or as inspired as we are as other times. But if we should train our minds, we should awaken that mood that I'm pleased seeing others make progress. Just like you and your wife last night, you hosted the devotees and you're running around and, I don't know if you ever took prasadam, but just I'm happy serving the other devotees and helping them hear and chant. And sometimes we see that, and there's so many pastimes that have with devotees with Prabhupada, where Prabhupada would come, and sometimes devotees were like doing so much other service they didn't really get a chance to kind of sit and hear from him, and Prabhupada would glorify them. sometimes in stories, these devotees would be out on book distribution, and all the devotees would meet Prabhupada at the airport and go back to the temple. And sometimes the book distributors, they stay at the airport or wherever they were, because it's like, well, I'm going to go back and of course they wanted to hear from Prabhupada, but they just didn't want to like be around to like say they could be around. And, well, Prabhupada's going to tell me I should be distributing Lord Chaitanya's mercy, so let's keep distributing Lord Chaitanya's mercy, and we'll be giving class for everybody etc. tomorrow morning. So Prabhupada appreciated that move. Not that we shouldn't associate whenever we can with the spiritual master, with the advanced devotees, but that the mood is taking pleasure in giving it to others. So we can stop there. Any comments, questions anybody might have? Yes, Prabhu.
You mentioned ISKCON has a great facility of hearing, chanting, doing seva, cooking and all. I remember once in Jew temple, one life member came first time he stayed in temple. He attended Mangala. He saw 3 pujaris. They are offering incense, turning behind, offering lamp, turning all at a time, and then Narsimharti, then announcement, then all the altars closed. He was sitting next to me. Luckily, he asked me, how is happening? Nobody is guiding. All perfect coordination. And then announcement over, then Tulsi Arti, all parikrama. He was amazed. He said, I don't know how it's happening. I said, it's all the only blessed. I showed Prabhupada's Murti. I showed him. He's the one who guided us and he's going down the parampara. And he was so amazed. And then he started chanting. Then he became a big donor in Jude. So just want to share.
Yes, nice. Very good. Yeah, that's by Prabhupada's mercy and the parampara. We didn't know. I mean, I was like trying so many different things. I went to hear his Swami, who said, yeah, know yourself. How? What do I do? I mean, there's so much individuality and flexibility within Krishna consciousness, but just as an example, I can remember thinking when I was a little bit convinced there's a spiritual life and search for God is what we're supposed to do. I can remember thinking, so what side of the bed am I supposed to get out in the morning? Is there any guidance here? I mean, what are you supposed to do? You just kind of like walk around and hope you get hit by lightning? Or is there some process? And so many people, different traditions, there's like, I mean, some have a process, but a lot, there's no process. There's no process. It's like, praise the Lord. Okay, well, how, what, when, where? Like that. So Krishna is very kind, giving us so many details. And Lord Chaitanya is making it so easy for us, right?
One more comment.
Yes, please.
When Prabhupada said that when somebody has vision of deity, when they have darshan of deity, they get purified. And so many videos are on Facebook and all, so people see. But Duryodhana and all, they saw Krishna personally. All these thousands and millions of soldiers from the Kauravas, they all saw Krishna very personal.
Yeah, he had Prabhupada answers that in the purport, right? He talks about Ravan and Hiranyakashipu, Kamsa, Jarasandha, Shishupal. He could have said Duryodhana. Could have mentioned his name too. They were highly qualified personalities by acquisition of material assets. Right? Like Duryodhana was a big king, powerful king, and not in one sense a bad ruler. He wasn't as torturous we hear, like say Hiranyakashipu. But Prabhupada says, but they were unable to appreciate the presence of the Lord. So even though they were materially qualified, they didn't have spiritual qualification. So they couldn't understand, they couldn't appreciate, even though he was there. So the same thing, I mean, the deity is there, not different from Krishna. Some people appreciate, some of us don't appreciate as much as we should. But we aspire to that point when, I mean, Lord Chaitanya, we used to say Jagannath, you just cry. Right?
Thank you.
Yeah. Other comments or questions?
Our first exposure to Krishna Mandir was in Denver.
Oh, also in Denver, what year?
93 to 95.
90, well, hold on, 93 to 95. I moved from Denver 93.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we left right then, if I remember correctly. When in 93?
August.
Oh yeah, I just missed you. My misfortune.
So meeting here now.
When in August, do you know?
Probably middle of August. Beginning of August, actually.
Yeah,
And we went to the Mandir very quickly.
yes,
after
nice.
the school. Because it was
Radha-
only Mandir.
Radha Govinda.
Great experience.
Wonderful.
Great devotion.
Wonderful. Yeah, I came, I visited, there was a small temple in Ann Arbor, Michigan, like just a college outreach center. And although it's right near Detroit, I never went to Detroit temple, which is beautiful, but then I moved to Denver. And that was really the first temple I got involved with on Cherry Street, right?
Yes.
1400 Cherry Street, they're still there. Did you know Mother Nidra? Did you meet Nidra? She's like a pillar of that community. She's been there since probably 75, 76. Yeah, very saintly devotee. Yeah. So when did you move here?
We moved to St. Louis in 98,
Okay, so you're in Denver for about 5 years?
2 years, 93 to 95.
Then
We
95.
moved to Carbondale,
Okay.
and from Carbondale we came.
Okay, good. Krishna Balaram dragged you to their lotus feet.
Yes.
That's nice. Well, thank you for coming, participating.
Prabhu, it's always enriching to hear how devotees join ISKCON, how devotees the interaction. We have heard. So can you please tell about yourself in beginning stage, how you joined, short sketch of your joining.
How about some other questions? I get bored with that story.
It's very enriching, but we'll hear
Yeah.
again and again.
Let's see if there's any other questions.
Online people also.
Oh, yeah, online. So many people are muted. That means they're chewing their breakfast loudly and they don't want to disturb the class.
Should probably you have a question. You are muted.
Show Prabhu, you're the only one there on mute. Oh, he muted quickly. Yes, I don't want to be found out. Any questions out there?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
RBD.
So,
Yes.
differences.
Carbondale, yeah.
Yes.
We're just going to turn on the volumes and I'll repeat what you say.
As you said that somebody may question.
Oh, can you, that's as
Yeah.
loud as it can be? It's hard to hear.
I think microphone can.
Okay,
Can
hold
you
on
hear
one
now?
second, please.
Can you
One
hear
second,
better?
he's gonna put in the microphone. So we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Yeah, Zoom people can hear. Yeah. The
Okay.
temple room. Hare Krishna.
It's still,
Hare Krishna.
technology is not so good.
That's what it do.
He's looking to see where's the speaker on this
Yeah, that's
computer.
the max.
Try it again, bro. Say it kind of loudly and I'll try to repeat what you say.
Yes, Prabhu. So you said somebody may question it is sectarian to hear chant about Krishna. So I think you answered something in your talk. I missed that one. Could you say, because as you see that our audience is like, from various background, the college kids. So how to answer that question? How do we present that we are not non-sectarian?
I'm not sure if I could understand you completely. How to present something that we're not affecting them. I missed one or two words.
Non-sectarian.
Non-vegetarian?
Non-sectarian.
How do we present Krishna consciousness in a non-sectarian way? Don't be sectarian.
I think he was very impressed when he said that if somebody is praying to Allah, Muhammad, or Christ, or don't
Yeah.
just present to them that Krishna is in God.
Yeah.
Let them practice for their person. Just add Krishna to their.
Yes.
So I think that's where he's coming from.
Okay, yeah, you say the microphone so they can hear you out there.
So Rupala's Prabhu, I think what you were saying is that sectarian way is that when people are practicing like in other religions, they're praying to a different God or to Jesus or to Allah or Muhammad. How do you really present to them is just to add a little bit of Krishna to them, not to really change anything what they are doing. Is that what you meant from the question?
Yes.
So one thing, I don't have it right here, but we can look it up. Maybe you can look it up, send it to everybody online.
For
There's a
example,
beautiful, there's a beautiful prayer by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And he's prayer writing, maybe not prayer. And he's explaining, he says, how a Vaishnava should feel when they enter a place of worship of another person, another tradition. And he says that I should remain in that place. First of all, he says, don't leave. Like, it's different than my tradition. I have to leave. I'm going to be influenced negatively or something. I should stay in that place in a respectful mood and understand that this is my Lord being worshipped in a way that I don't understand. Because Prabhupada says even Aborigines, they have some sense of something higher. They may not know what's higher, but they have some sense of something higher. So we can think behind the scenes, Krishna is there, God is there. We call him Krishna. He's there, the absolute supreme divinity, absolute truth is there. And different people are understanding him in different ways. They have different teachers in different times, different civilizations, different societies, different books. So they're worshiping in a particular way. So this is my Lord is being worshipped in a way that I don't particularly understand, but I should stay in this place. And then he says, my own devotion to my Lord increases by seeing how he's come. And he uses the word emblem. He's being approached by this different emblem or system or whatever. My own devotion from my own system increases by seeing their devotion, which is, really quite wonderful. And if we keep an open eye, I mean, how can we, I gave the example last night. There was this woman in the airport. We used to have a business there for the temple, and very, humble lady, and, janitor service, pushing her cart, picking up the trash. And you'd ask her, how are you today? I'm blessed. She's a deeply religious lady. I'm blessed. She's not making a lot of money. She's not very prestigious, but she's not saying, how are you today? Well, I'm so fed up with this job. What am I making little low funds for? Blah, my back's bother me. Maybe that's the fact, but her vision is, I'm so blessed.
Wow.
So how can we not think this is some God consciousness? We so proud that only I. And then that's part of the problem in the world today. People think only I have any understanding of God. You don't have understanding of God. Your book's useless, your book's useless. And only my book, only my name, I met somebody on book distribution years and years ago. And he was telling me, I don't believe any of this. He happened to be Christian. He said he was Christian. I think many Christians would not think he was Christian, but he said he was Christian. And then at some point I remember asking, he said, so are you Protestant? He said, yes. I said, what about the Catholics? They're going to hell. I said, okay, well, what type of Christian are you? I don't know which one, but one denomination, let's say Baptist. And I said, well, what about the Presbyterians? Are they pleasing God? Are they saved? No, they're not. And I went through like the whole list. And then I remember I actually asked him, I said, well, so only people in your church are saved. Is everybody in your church saved? I asked him that specifically. Is everybody in your church? No, not everybody in my church. I thought, wow, what a lonely place. It's going to be you and a handful of people and Jesus. Maybe is Jesus going to make it? I don't know. But that was his vision. It was so you don't want to discourage people like that. Whatever devotion he has, if he's going to church and praying, he's going to also make spiritual advancement. So we should probably say, don't try to defeat people who have a different philosophical, religious opinion. Encourage them to go more serious in his own tradition. Prabhupada would never say, stop being Christian or Jewish or this or that. But no, just please, Jesus said this, so please follow that. Please follow that more sincerely. So I think that's, in our own enthusiasm for Krishna consciousness, we're gaining a taste, we're realizing so much knowledge is here. But our enthusiasm for our own process shouldn't make us disrespectful to other people.
So there are some online questions. Neeraj Prabhu is asking.
Okay, here's a question. How to remain enthusiastic all the time in Krishna consciousness? Neeraj Prabhu is asked. Well, Prabhupada explains that if we actually understood our position, I mentioned this last night, we would run from service to service to service. But part of it is we don't really understand the gifts we've been given, and we don't understand how dangerous our position is. There's a joke I think I heard it in St. Louis when I was first here. Some people driving on the road and they go by a church and the people standing outside, they have signs up that say, stop, turn around, the end is near. Right? And the people, the car drives by full of people and they're like, look at these religious nuts, and they're laughing and joking, and they pull around the corner and you hear a big crash. So there's two men holding the signs. One of them turns to the other one. He says, that's the third car this morning. Do you think we should just get a new sign that says the bridge is out? So, sometimes we're not so good at communicating the message, and our message is, in terms of enthusiasm, sometimes we're not enthusiastic because we never really understood. Like they didn't stop because they didn't understand the sign, and they made a major blunder. So in the same way, we can remain enthusiastic if we're understanding the value of the gifts, if we're understanding the dangerousness of our situation, and that also comes from hearing. And also we associate with enthusiastic people. So one, we have to cultivate deeper knowledge, and conviction comes with that. Two, we have to associate with enthusiastic people. And third thing is we have to just act enthusiastically. Like we may be in a kirtan. Okay, so tonight's Harinam. So maybe we're like in the back, we don't want to dance, we don't want to smile, we don't look at anybody. But we've heard you should dance, you should smile, you should look at people. So it's like, all right, I don't want to do this, but I'll try. That's enthusiasm. Prabhupada says, he defines in Upadeshamrita that enthusiasm, utsaha, means endeavor with intelligence. So intelligence means this is what I should do. I've heard from the acharyas, I've heard from Prabhupada, from the Guru, from the Vaishnavas, from Shan. This is what I should do. So let me endeavor to do that. That's enthusiasm. I've heard that I'm supposed to try to do some service at the temple on Sunday. So, okay, I don't feel like serving Prashadam, but I'll do it. I don't feel like staying afterwards to help clean up, but I'll do it. Oh my gosh, there she comes. I don't like her. I've never liked her. But she's coming to the temple, so I'm supposed to smile and be nice to everybody. Okay, Krishna, I will endeavor. I will smile. Thank you. So nice to see you, Mataji, or Prabhu, whatever it is. That's endeavor with intelligence. That's enthusiasm, isn't it? When we do that appreciation exercise, I think we did it here once before. One of the things devotees talk about is somebody was appreciating me, whoever me is, all of us. They were appreciating that, oh, Prabhu, you're always enthusiastic. And then our devotees will always say, but I don't think I'm always enthusiastic. But if devotees think I'm enthusiastic, I really have to try to be enthusiastic because they're appreciating it. It's inspiring them that I'm enthusiastic. So we just give a little bit of enthusiasm. And we can see it's not always easy. Your question is, how do we all the time, that's tough. How can we be more enthusiastic? That's more realistic. But I remember in Lilamrita Prabhupada, before he came to the West, he was living at the Scindia steamship line because they knew the boat was going soon. And he was still going out during the day trying to make contacts and preach to people. And there was one woman, she was a wife of a ship captain or something, that lived in a little cottage, nearby within this place that employees lived when they were going or coming, whatever, with their ships. And she liked Prabhupada, and she understood a little bit about his mission. And she mentioned, somehow they found her, interviewed her, and she was mentioning how sometimes Swamiji, as she called him, would come back at the end of the day and she would ask, how did it go today, Swamiji? Did you make some good comments? And he would say, not so much today. And she mentioned that he seemed his energy was a little down, not so much today, not so much progress today. And then moments later, he would say, but tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow's another day. We'll give it like that. And then, so we sometimes, and I know there's like sometimes Prabhu would give a lecture and he would talk on this subject and say to devotees that even if you do not get the permit for Rath Yatra, we must continue to try with enthusiasm, depending on, the person's right there who Prabhupada knows been trying for 2 weeks to get the permit, but he's saying, no, you keep trying. You keep trying, keep depending on Krishna. And we see Prabhupada's enthusiasm. I mean, he's our acharya. He's the founder, he's our attorney. So many obstacles, so many difficulties, so many failures. I mean, his wife sold his Bhagavatam, right? His Bhagavad Gita wasn't his Gita was like stolen. What was stolen from his typewriter was stolen. He's in New York, he's all by himself, he's got no support. Somebody donates a typewriter, which is like gold for him in terms of what he's trying to do. And the janitor revealed, he like snuck through the door and stole everything he had. Did he quit? So we run into some obstacles sometimes that cause us to feel less enthusiastic, but then we should look at Prabhu. If he remained enthusiastic what he's facing, okay, whatever little problem I have is nothing compared to what he faced. Is that okay, Prabhu? Niraj, Prabhu, some thoughts?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you so much. Please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you, Prabhuji.
All glories to Prabhupada.
All good.
One student said he is not allowed to do yoga because he's a Christian. How to reply to him? Nice question from our friends in Carbondale. There's whole books on Christian yoga. I know a lady, and this is funny. There's a woman, I won't say her name, this may be recorded. She's been coming to our Vaishnava Christian dialogue for many years. And she first got interested in yoga because there was a Catholic priest, I know him very well, who teaches yoga. I have many Catholic friends who practice yoga. And because, at the very least, they feel it's good for their health and it's good, clears their mind up, and probably feels they become better Christians because that's what they're trying to do. So this one woman, she's doing like her master's degree or something on Christian yoga. And she comes to our Vaishnava Christian dialogues, and the lady that helps me, we kind of like give a list. These are the Vaishnavas, these are the Christians. And she told this woman that was helping this year, she said, why did you put me in the Christian side? And so when you started coming, you're a Christian, she said, no, put me on the Vaishnavas. So that's not the goal. We're happy, some people are going to move. Even some Vaishnavas, they're going to become Christians. Some Vaishnavas are going to become Sikhs. So okay, that happens. People, they change. What we want is people to go deeper in their bhakti, in their spiritual practice. So in this particular case, it is true. There are there's people write books on Christian yoga, how you can practice yoga and be better as a Christian. Some people are like, okay, I don't like all the imagery, the Hindu imagery, this and that's okay. We don't care. You just do whatever. But a lot of people are Christian, but they feel, no, they know there's devotion behind it all. And it helps me go deeper in my devotion, whether it's Christian devotion, Vaishnava devotion, whatever. So according to their particular situation. But the main thing is, I think the message is, so many people meet today, they have no spiritual affiliation at all. Great. Start from scratch. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam will take you to the highest revelation, wherever you're from. Somebody says, I know, again, don't go very often these days on book distribution, maybe more in hurry now. But, you meet people and they'll tell you, they'll say, I'm Christian. As an example, we're not picking on Christians, but we need more Christians in the other group. Well, that's great. Do you like to hear about other religious traditions? No, I only read my book. Okay, have a nice day. God bless you. There's no need to talk to them. They don't want to talk to you. They don't want. But other people say, well, I'm a Christian. Are you open to learning about other of the world's great religious traditions? Yeah, I am. Great. Well, this is a book. We don't try to supplant their book, but tell them about it. This is a great spiritual tradition. And if you're open-minded to learn about other traditions, as many people are, they'll appreciate the book. People don't want to have a nice day. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. God bless you. Right? So I think that's all the questions up there. Yes, one more from here.
Now we just explained the Christianity and Vaishnava. Hare Krishna. We explained already the part of nationalism and Vaishnava culture and Christianity. So
If it's too close, there's feedback.
I remember you also go for the Hinduism and Vaishnava culture also. In 2016, I think you with Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. So there was some program to represent ISKCON.
Okay.
So how do we represent their Hindu ISKCON?
Yeah, well, I mean, we know, okay, two answers. Don't listen to one and leave, you have to listen to both. Prabhupada says many places, we have nothing to do with Hindu. There's not this body. We're not black, we're not white, we're not male, we're not female, we're not Christian, we're not Hindu, we're spirit souls, we're servants of Krishna. So that's one thing. Is from our transcendental nature. All these, we're free from all these designations, right? It's not like you go to Vrindavan and there's the Vaishnava corner, and then there's the Sikh corner, the Christian corner. It's like everybody's a devotee of Krishna. So from a transcendental platform, we have nothing to do with Hinduism, anything, these categories, just we're devotees of Krishna. However, we're living in the material world and there are different designations. I remember years ago when I was a temple president in Denver, India had a 300 rupee tax to leave the country. And one of our brahmacharis, puffed up young guy that he was, very enthusiastic, he said, I'm not paying that tax. I'm a sadhu. Why should I pay a tax? It's a mundane government, and it's like, well, Prabhu, maybe you have an American passport. I'm not that body. Why should they? Because they didn't tax Indian people. If you're Indian national, you didn't pay the tax. If you were a foreigner, he's like, I'm not a foreigner. I'm not this body. How dare they tax me? Well, Prabhu, okay, you're not that body, but the fact is you will go to jail if we don't pay this 300 rupee tax. So yeah, transcendentally, you're not the body, but practically you are, and we're going to, so, I paid the tax. He didn't have money. He's like, no, I don't want you to pay the tax. Just shut up, get on the plane. I'm going to pay the tax for you, okay? So transcendentally, we're all pure. There's no designations. But in this world, we know Vaishnavism is a part of the broader Hindu tradition. So when people ask me, are you Hindu? I say, I'm a Vaishnava Hindu. And if they don't know what that means, then I explain it to them, So if we say we're Vaishnava as part of the Hindu tradition, does that mean we believe in everything that goes under the name of Hinduism today? No, we definitely don't. We have so many differences. And again, just like, a Baptist or a Protestant, yes, so, oh, you're Christian, so you believe in the Pope. No, we rebelled against that. Those, if you know the history of the whole Protestant tradition, is rebelling against the authority, where they thought abuse of authority of the Pope. Now these days things are better, they respect each other, but they're part of the broader umbrella of Christian traditions, or sometimes they'll say Abrahamic traditions, Muslim, Christian, Jew. They have some similar roots, but very different. So in the same way, we have similar roots in the broader Hindu culture. Some are closer to us, some are different from us. But this is traditionally, we study certain parts of the Vedas. We don't study all of the Vedas. There's certain part of the Vedas that describe animal sacrifices, right? We don't do that. That's not us as part of Vedas, but it's not. But we explain why we don't do that part, but it's part of the tradition. It's there in certain parts. We don't follow that part. Is that okay? Yeah. So we emphasize we're Vaishnavas within the broader Hindu tradition. And in the ultimate sense, it's not, because sometimes people think I'm Hindu, they almost define themselves in opposition to Muslims. Or I'm a Christian in opposition to the Jews, or opposite. But no, we define ourselves not in opposition to something else, but in connection with Krishna. And whatever you are, go deeper. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. We'll stop. Yes. Hare Krishna. Shiva Prabhupada ki jai.
Yes, Anuttama Prabhu ki jai. Bhakti ki jai. Gautam Nandi Hari.
With this group,
Everywhere you go,
my history is not so important,
Wherever you go, last will be the Anuttama Prabhu ki jai.
But like the question, how do we become devotees? That's sometimes interesting, but when you run out of good questions, and there's 30 minutes to go, sometimes that's a good question.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Okay. Yeah, 9:30. Yeah.
Science. Yeah.